controversy continues with this hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. There's a second study out of France, and that came out on Friday night. You saw the study. You know, the reason why I wanted to get on this is because we're seeing a lot of things being said on Twitter and, you know, in the news media. And I just kind of want to set the record straight with what are the facts. And so that's why we got on today and to discuss this study. What is your take?
You know, so I really wanted to do this for one reason, because, you know, when studies come out there, they're meant for everyone. There's physicians, there's going to be people just who watch the news. And I thought what really motivated me about this was you, Cassandra. You woke me up on Sunday morning. I mean, my little phone was having text, but did you see this? Oh my God, this study came out. And, you know, I went from REM sleep to awake, and, you know, I had to do some research.
I hope that you didn't have your, you know what, it's funny. I woke up at like 2 a.m. that day. I don't know why. I went to bed really early. And so I was up really early. And when I found it, or when I saw the information, and my friend actually had texted, you know, had messaged me about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just didn't want to lose the link that was sent to me. You know what I mean? Like, I started looking at it. I was like, I know you're not up, but go ahead and just like look at this when you get up. So yeah, that's the backstory.
And I think, and that was important to me because, you know, I think that many people may have the same response. And I want to make sure that people know what they're looking at. What is the data out there? Should they all be happy and as excited as you were that day, you know? So I think this is why I was motivated to talk about this. But anyway.
And by the way, when I texted you, the information that I saw was that 80 people were basically turned out negative after the second study. And so that's what my impression was from what
Of course. And, you know, and that's what most people are going to see. You know what I mean? That's being, if I were to write something out for the news, it would say 80 people cured, you know. But anyways, I wanted to say a few things, you know. So before we do our usual banter back and forth about the study, I actually really wanted to say hello to actually, you know, I talked to many of my friends and colleagues and mentors in the East Coast, meaning New York and New Jersey and Philadelphia. I did all my training in New York, and I worked at Philadelphia. And yeah, they're really taking a beating out there. And I don't think that people understand, and people, you know, because COVID doesn't affect every state equally. There are people in certain areas that have one case of COVID, you know, and I just think that people, even myself, underestimated how people in New York, New Jersey, I mean, they're drowning. And some of my mentors actually, as sad as they may be, have COVID-19. So it was really, I just wanted to say something to them and all the great work that they're doing out there. And I also wanted to say this because, you know, people watching be like, why does Dr. Raj get to have time to make these videos? So I wanted to say that, you know, I'm definitely not a backseat driver. I'm actually at work right now at USC. I am going to be gowning up to go to the floor to see COVID patients, but I came early. I don't know why you make me up so early all the time to do this interview, because I mean, something that's very passionate to me beyond actually helping other people. I feel like getting the message across and getting the right message to be, you know, an advocate for the public is also just as important for me as being in the room helping patients out. So I wanted to say that I am in the trenches with everyone, but this is a passion of mine. So, you know, before we talk about the study, you know, after talking to all my friends and mentors and people in New York and my own colleagues here at USC, I mean, it's a pandemic, people are dying. And when you have someone that says there is a cure, and they didn't use that word, but that's what many people are thinking, that why wouldn't I be on Team Cure? I mean, I would be foolish not to be on Team Cure. That's what I want more than anything when people are just dying out there. So, I mean, no matter analyzing a study and having positive thoughts are two different things. I want this to be the magic bullet, you know what I mean? But I think my job is to tell you how we break down a study. So I want to talk about some of the things that I call the facts, you know, and before we jump into that, you know, one of my other passions is teaching, and I still do it as we speak right now. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is biostatistics. And this is one of those topics that we learn during med school. We try to forget it. But, you know, every week in certain fellowship programs, like here at USC, we have a journal club. And I know that most of us are playing on our phone and texting other people during journal club, but there's a reason why we have it, is to try to teach people some of the skills of basic biostatistics of how we analyze journals and articles and evidence-based medicine. And this was a really big reminder that, you know what, whether you're taking USMLE Step 1 or you're a clinician in the trenches, I was so happy to be refreshed and reminded that these classes, these skills make a difference, okay? So here are the facts. So the last two studies we did, the first one and the second one, they're not peer reviewed. And that's not a big deal. I know times are tough and, we're trying to get this cure out there as quickly as possible, but we're not looking at peer reviewed studies, but not a big deal because we're rushing to get these studies out. This study also is an observational study. This is not a randomized, blinded, placebo-controlled trial. And maybe those words don't mean that to the public, but when we're talking about research, this is what it is. And this is not that. This is an observational study. So the big thing I think about first is when we talked about the first study and the group had, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, we said there's 6 people. And that's such a small number. So when we talk about what do we worry about here, when you think about having a cure, and they didn't use that word, I'm using it, the bottom line point is you think about preventing death, right? You think about decreasing mortality rate. And when we talk about death, we're talking about death in the world. So when you say you have a study and you're looking at 6 people, you're making statements with confidence that say that what happens to these 6 people represent what happens in the world. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine, here's the world, here's 6 people. I turn the 6 people into 80 people, and I compare it to the world, how much should I open my fingers? The answer is nothing. Because whether it's 6 or 80, that number is what? Irrelevant, because we're talking about the what? The world. So just because we're saying that you increase the number, that remember, when you make a statement based upon a study, how confident are you that your findings can relate to the entire world? So when I say you need more numbers, you need a bigger sample size, the answer is yes, yes, and more yes. But going from 6 to 80 is not my idea of making judgments with confidence that what you find is going to relate to the world.
So was the observation, though, was that, 80 people did take both medications and 80 people did turn out negative? Is that what the study says? So
let's take it. So for my statement about sample size, the question is, why are you harping on sample size again? And I want my students to know that. So the reason why is because, like I was hinting at, when you want to know that a medication is, helping people, is curing people, I'm using that word. One thing you have to look at, which very few people look at, is mortality rate, which is otherwise known as death rate. So let me ask you, can we calculate mortality rate? The answer is what?
No, I can't.
Yes, we can calculate it.
Oh, you can?
Yes, we can. Okay. And that's where, one of the basic, biostatistics things I wanted to talk about, where do we get the numbers for mortality rate? It means the number of people that have unfortunately died from the disease, and that number on the denominator be over the amount of people who are diagnosed with the disease itself. And can we get those numbers every day? The answer is what?
Yes.
Yes. All you have to do is go on your, on your phone and Google death rate of COVID-19, number of cases of COVID-19. So literally right before I came on this interview, I got the numbers for us and I have my calculator on my phone. So what I did was the number of COVID deaths right now are 33,577. The number of cases worldwide is going to be 712,148 cases. So if you take the math and you take 33,577 divided by 712,148 cases, the number becomes 0.047. That means your mortality rate is 4.7%. Now, this is very crude. Why? Is because from the beginning of this whole outbreak, we were always questioning the amount of tests that we have out there. And because we don't have a lot of testing initially, that denominator, everyone's talking about the denominator. Do we really know the denominator? It's because we didn't have as much testing out there. But for what it's worth, it's 4.7%. This is a crude biostatistics. So in the study, they said they had 80 people that got the combination of azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine. Now, if you read the study, and once again, this is not a peer-reviewed study, this is just what was sent out over the internet, that 2 people didn't respond to it. So it's not all 80. One person died in the study, and the other person didn't respond because they stayed in the ICU. This was the sick of the sick. Mm-hmm. So if you take the number 80 and multiply that by 4.7%, because that's the crude mortality rate of what we're talking about, the number should be what? Around 3.7 people should die, unfortunately, out of the 80. And in the study, how many people didn't respond? 2. So already, just by doing just a very simple, this is the most simplistic calculation you can do, is that, comparing the mortality rate that we calculated from day to day compared to the study, it's not that far off. And this is the most crudest thing in someone who's not a biostatistician. So that's why people are going to ask me, so why is mortality rate so important when we're viewing a study? Why does everyone give their opinion but not even mention the most important thing? Is because of the fact that when you have a mortality rate of COVID-19, which is somewhere between maybe 1 to 5%, 2 to 5%, and once again, I don't want to use the word low because it makes me tear up, because when you see the people who are dying, it's horrible.
Right.
But the truth is, many people are asymptomatic. They have upper respiratory tracts. Most people will do well, but it's horrible when they do die. But when you have a mortality rate of only around, and I hate using the word only, 4 to 5%, that means that you have a large margin of error when you're conducting a study, because there is something called your confidence intervals, that when you have such a small sample size of 80 people compared to the world, that means your confidence intervals are huge. And what does it mean when you have large confidence intervals? That means that your confidence of your results are very, very low. So what is the take-home message about this? Is that, and I want to quote one of my just mentors, you know what I mean? And I don't want anyone to think that I just came up with this by myself. I didn't. Part of knowing these things is knowing who to talk to. And I just was very fortunate to be around the smartest people, and he told me that the take-home message is that statistics are one way of making a decision. What makes statistics better than opinion is making a statement that you are confident about. And back to the beginning, when you're talking about mortality rate, and you have mortality rate that's around 4 to 5%, and you have a sample size of nothing, your confidence intervals are huge, which means you can't make an accurate statement from those results. So when we talk about things I wanted to mention, that when we hear this study, what is my true feeling about the study? It's promising. It's a promising study. I'm going to say that at the end of our talk is that I didn't conduct the study. People with passion who has families who are dying made the study. And why would I ever want to be negative towards that? I love the fact that people are trying and they're coming up with things all the time. So it's very promising. But what I'm already hearing, through you, through other people, is that this study did not validate the first study. That's not what it did. And that's all people are saying. The first had 6, the second had 80. It's more than just that. And by no means, I've already heard it already, this study does not mean this is a cure at all. At all. And that's what people are saying. And also, times are rushed. People don't have time to do a peer-reviewed article and this. But, what were some of the criticisms that other people made, that we made during our first video? That there was no control group. He made a sequel, there was still no control group. We said that we wanted a double-blinded, randomized controlled trial. This is an observational study. You wanted with confidence to say what we found in this study is going to affect the whole world, but there's 80 people. And those 80 people, when I gave you how to calculate mortality rate, those people, unfortunately, who were, when we look at the world, was a random sample of people who were diagnosed.
And were those people, do you know if those people, did they just volunteer to be a part of the study?
No, and that's why it's not a random sample. You took them from what? One hospital. Now, once again, I'll go out of order. How many people are going to mention these things when they look at the study? The answer is what?
I don't know.
How many people are going to mention in their morning coffee over the confidence intervals of the study?
Maybe none. I mean,
maybe none. Exactly.
Maybe 5, maybe 20.
And that's the problem, right. Is that when you talk about, passion, and you talk about what's out there, and I think people have very good hearts, and I think that's wonderful. But, this is a big part about, when something comes out, you don't get a chance to sit down and look at it for what it's worth.
Well, you bring up a good point with, out of the 80 people, 2 actually passed, which is what percentage?
It didn't pass. 1 was still in the ICU according to the study.
Okay.
And one passed away.
Okay.
So they mentioned that 2 people didn't respond,
Okay. They just didn't respond to it.
And once again, we don't
know what their pre-existing conditions were.
100%.
What they knew.
Because this is not a released journal article.
Right.
We're looking at a rough draft,
Yeah.
But, and so I think the big thing is going to be this, is that if you ask me, why are we breaking down the study, talking about the study, why do I get a little, I guess on edge when people are like overly celebrating the study, is because what is the most scariest thing that could happen to everyone? You know what it is?
Everyone dies?
People will think that we have a cure, and what do you think is going to happen to social distancing?
Oh, right. Everybody's going to take it like, okay, well, this means that we can just...
Exactly. And you know what does work? Tell me what does work. Social distancing. And I could tell you that's what happens. Is that, we already said in my opening statement, the way COVID is affecting people is not, the same in every state, every city throughout. And people don't realize people are dying out there, and they hear this, oh, maybe I'll be able to loosey-goosey with my social distancing. And that is why that is the take-home message more than anything I talked about, when you give the wrong information.
Right. So, and I also just want to say, in addition to your support to all those families and people out there, my heart goes out to everybody that's having to deal with this as well. It's just, nobody should have to be dealing with this, but also, that's what we're going through right now in society, and we are dealing with it. And so, we're doing our best to bring good information, which is why this is so great. What were you going to say next?
I already planned it out. Once you get me motivated, I do my, but I wanted to say this. I always think it's important to come back to me. What would I do? Because that's what people say. It's easy to talk and teach, but what would I do? And the truth is, talking about myself and my partners, when someone's dying in front of you, regardless of what this study says or doesn't say, or how I broke it down and talked about confidence intervals, when someone's dying, we just give it a shot. So even with all the things I said, do I think we're going to give the medication? The answer is yes. Because when you have nothing, I'm going to give you something, but there's always that benefit out there. And that's why, there's always about being human when you deal with patients. I don't think when someone's dying in your hands, I'm going to talk about the confidence intervals,
Right.
But, I wanted to say a couple more things, is that, when we talk about both studies, who wasn't involved and who would ask the same questions I would ask you at a much more intelligent level than myself? The CDC. And that's a big thing. The CDC was not part of any of these studies. And the CDC has the most intelligent biostatisticians and epidemiologists and all these things. And those are the questions that they would ask at this point.
So do you think that the CDC should be conducting their own study on the same topic?
And I'm sure they are, and I'm sure they will, but those are the people who ask questions like mortality rate and confidence intervals and denominators, you know what I mean? And in that regard, I just wanted to say, by no means, I'm joking that, back in med school, yes, we all learned this, but I was so grateful that one of my mentors gave me a refresher how important some of these things are.
Yeah, and it's going to remind your current students right now too, because you still have many students both online and in person. Not in person right now, mainly online right now.
Yeah,
you still have a lot of patients.
And my mentor also asked me this question, and it has nothing to do with biostatistics, but he said, Raj, sometimes when you look at the study for what it's worth, just on the outside level, was your gut when you think, how should hydroxychloroquine kill a virus, and how does it work? And I thought about that, this is more just, conversational. And I'm like, I don't know how it works. And we've used this drug in rheumatology and lupus and all these diseases. And you ask a rheumatologist, which I did before this interview, and they said, yeah, I don't even know how it works.
Let me ask you this. What is in hydroxychloroquine?
And that's the big thing, is that when you tell someone how it works and they don't have a good answer, or the answers are what I can tell you what people will say, it works at the molecular level, okay? It's an immunomodulator, okay? You know what these words mean? I don't know how it works. So it was just very interesting, you know what I mean? So, and this really, goes on, another way how sometimes it's not just about the biostatistics, it's that kind of gut feeling when you talk about certain things. So I just thought that was a very interesting point.
So your gut feeling on that, just knowing that how it works or doesn't work, is that something that just pops out to you as like a red flag? Like
No, I think it's just something to think about. Because, the truth is, someone out there knows how it works. Because, helping people is not just being a clinical physician. There are like these amazing scientists out there.
Yeah, we would love to talk to one of them. If somebody knows
probably
exactly
knows how it works, and I'll be happy to know that answer. About that.
Yeah, we want to talk to you.
But like I said, I think the bottom line point is the last two things, is that, it's people are dying. It's very hard out there. I do want to thank people involved in the studies in France and all the people who I don't know, because I never wanted to get the wrong impression about how we broke down the study, because you guys are amazing and care about people.
And all the healthcare providers right now out there, we're just... No,
definitely.
Right now, we are trying to get you good information as well. So just getting on here... And
the truth is that, we don't have many things available when it comes to pharmacological input. So, if you ask, what am I going to do when I see a patient on the ventilator with low blood pressure, families crying? Yeah, I'll give you the drugs, But anyways, I think I took too much of our time. This is supposed to be a 5-minute interview. I'm going to start crying on this.
Oh, I know. Well, that brings something up, which is, if you're out there and you're a doctor, we want to know, or a healthcare provider in general, we want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments what you actually think about this and breaking it down. And do you like this video? Do you want to see more of this? Because we definitely want to bring you what you need. And what's your single biggest challenge right now as a healthcare provider? I know that there's a lot out there, and you guys are sharing it with each other, but I think sharing that with the public is actually really a good, really good thing right now. So thank you so much, Dr. Raj. That was
You're welcome.
awesome.
You're welcome.
And I look forward to our next update.
I know. I'm sure it's not going to be far away.
Stay safe out there, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.